Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Superfeeler podcast. This is the second episode of the Relationships miniseries, and I am beyond excited to finally meet Scott, who I've heard so much about. Scott is Shannon's husband. You know Shannon from basically every other episode of this podcast and some episodes of her own. So, Scott, welcome to the podcast. I know that you've
Thank
probably
you.
heard a lot about Superfeelers and all that jazz. Curious, just to start us off, do you want to tell us a little bit about, either of you can start, do you want to tell us a little bit about your relationship and how it kind of kicked off?
Yeah, well, I can do that. We're both previously married, and my marriage didn't work out. Neither did Shannon's, and then a few months.
Surprise, you're actually both still married, and this is just like a really cool coming out. Yeah, just kidding.
Yeah, and we were sort of in our late 20s, in our local area where we grew up. We actually went to school together, and then didn't have much to do with each other at school, and then we were out. We reintroduced ourselves to each other at the pub one night. Cool story, that pub then burnt down a couple of months later, so and then the rest is history, I guess.
So you guys must have gotten together you guys must have gotten married super early, both of you.
My first marriage didn't last very long at all.
Oh, okay. So you were like mid-20s or something?
Yeah, or late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, because we met about 29 we were.
But Shannon, you got married super early? Because weren't you married for like 6 or 7 years?
I was in that relationship for 10 years. So wow. I had Elsie when I was 22, got married when I was 23, had Jack when I was 24. Yep. Okay. So fairly early, yes. But my husband was...
It feels so early.
Yeah, my husband was 10 years older than me. So probably a lot of that was on his timeline. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I mean, a lot of people get married really young. I mean, I live in the Bible Belt of British Columbia, and every hairdresser I meet is like 22 and has 4 kids and has been married for 10 years, it feels like. So I'm always like, oh, okay. So Shannon, do you have anything to add to Scott's description of that first meeting story?
No, I didn't think he was going to mention that we did know each other from school. So that was interesting. Because we didn't really know each other, but we knew each other enough for him to introduce himself to me that night and say, hey, remember me? I think there was a few Bacardi and Red Bulls involved and a little kiss on the dance floor. So I was out with my brother, who had just found out after lots of rounds of IVF that they were having a baby. So we were celebrating. And I said to my brother, I just kissed Scott, and they knew each other. So we were all pretty interconnected. And I said, you need me to I need you to take me home. Like I panicked. I run away. And he was like, he's so nice. He's so lovely. And of course he was so nice and so lovely, and added me as a friend on Facebook, I think, the next day. And then I didn't talk to him for like about 2 months. Like I was too scared to reply. So
relatable. Yep.
That had nothing to do with him and everything to do with me. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't seem like the most intimidating human, Scott, just like right off the bat. Did you guys grow up in like a smallish town, or like was it a complete fluke that you ended up in the same pub at the same day?
No, it's definitely I wouldn't say it's a small town, but it's not a major city. Like
right, like it's not abnormal to see people that you've met in high school at a pub.
Absolutely not.
It's not when you go out. There's only a couple of pubs, so
right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good chance you're going to catch up.
Whereas
with
like I could probably go to a pub in where I grew up every day of the week and never run into somebody that I went to high school with for a month and a half, 2 months. So I'm just curious, like how much fate blew into this.
There was a little bit, because I didn't live here at the time. I had moved away. So it was only that I'd come back to go out with my brother, and it was probably my first night out since I'd been single. Like, I was pretty set on it was just going to be me, Elsie, and Jack for the rest of
Right.
our life. And I definitely wasn't looking for another relationship or thinking about like going out and hooking up with a guy. I wasn't at that stage. I was definitely just focused on me and the kids and what our life was going to look like as a family of 3 instead of a family of 4. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he threw a bit of a spanner in the works, old Scotty.
The first of many, I'm sure. How long had you both been divorced or separated when this happened?
I think so. I'd separated in the April, and I think you were June, Scott?
May.
May. So April, yeah, so I was April, he was May, and then we met in, I think it was late July, so it was only a
Oh,
few
wow.
months
Okay.
that we'd been separated, and then our first date was in October.
Right. What I love about this is that you weren't super rushing into it, because I think I talked about this on the first episode of this miniseries with my husband, is every time I get really obsessed with someone and want to rush into it, it just backfires so fast. And so it's not only did Shannon ignore you for 3 months, which it, you know, that's a stop skill or a pause skill that you didn't even know you were doing, Shannon. But also just it sounds like you were actually being quite intentional about like not rushing into anything, because neither of you were trying to find a rebound immediately.
That
Sounds
was
like.
definitely the case
Mm-hmm.
once we did start dating. We were really, really cautious of the kids, and we didn't want to
Right.
do any damage to Shan's kids. And so we did dating for quite a while, and we made sure that it was a thing before Shan introduced me to the kids. And then we sort of dated semi long distance, hour away from each other for about a year and a half before Shannon and the kids moved in here, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. And did you always want kids, Scott?
Yeah, that was definitely, Shannon can talk about the question I asked her on that one. That was definitely high on the agenda.
Right.
So Shannon's kids were just part of the package for me, and brought me a lot of joy.
Happily. Yeah.
And still continue to
Awesome.
bring me a lot of joy. Yeah.
Is their dad in the picture at all? I actually have never asked that question.
Yeah, he is. So
Okay.
the kids have always had a relationship with their dad. It was sporadic when they were young. We had a pretty good setup initially after our separation. He was a chef, so he worked weekends, which made it really difficult because the kids were in school. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
used to leave my house and he would come to my, like, obviously I'd be there when he'd arrive, but I'd go and either stay at my friend's across the road or my mum's place. And then he'd
Mm.
come and stay at my house where I lived on the Sunday night. Often I worked at the school, so he would come. Is that Gus?
It is Gus. He's literally 2 doors away screaming at us.
So
Sorry
yeah, he
about
would.
that.
It's okay. He would come up and stay at my place and come to the kids' school and work in the
Okay.
canteen and stuff while they were at school, and then he'd go back to work. So we had a pretty good arrangement in those early days. That looked a bit different after he got into a relationship with someone else. Like, obviously, that's not going to look great for a new partner for
Yeah.
him. And he moved to Sydney. So the distance got further. So the kids
Mm.
he's always been in the kids' lives sporadically early. But as they've grown up, like, they've always been in contact with him. And it was only a couple of weeks ago we all went out for dinner for Jack's birthday,
Nice.
and we all, have a really amicable, even at times, I would say, enjoyable relationship with each other. So
That's so important. My parents were, I mean, they're not best friends, but they work in the same field. And so they run into each other a lot. And when they got divorced, I was like not 10 and my sister was 7 or something. And they like put in their separation agreement that they were going to live within a certain amount of kilometers to each other for that reason. Because my dad's American, right? So he could have just been like, okay, well, I'm just going to go back to the States. And I just think it's so important to, when safe, obviously, to try and do that. I think that's great. It's so funny, Shannon, trying to ask these questions because I'm like, I feel like I already know some of these answers, but for the sake of everybody else, when did borderline personality disorder first come up in your relationship?
So I was diagnosed in hospital after a suicide attempt. So we had lived for a very long time not knowing that borderline was the thing that I had. Yeah.
And what was that like for you, Scott?
It was a very challenging time, as you can imagine, because this was on the back end of, well, a traumatic experience for all of us. And I think in some ways it was a bit of relief because Shannon had spent so long looking for answers and, being diagnosed with this and that and attempting different things. I think, when she first told me when she was in hospital, I think you would have heard the story about the doctor said, or the psychiatrist said, don't Google it. Well,
Yeah.
obviously that was the first thing I did when I got home, and I watched a number of YouTube videos and did a lot of research, and then went back to Shan the next day and said, I think you should listen to this guy. I think he's got something, because it was quite evident to me once I was able to watch the symptoms and understand more myself that, yeah, he was definitely onto something.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, when you did Google it, was it relatively negative or was it pretty neutral?
I don't tend to look for negative stuff when I go looking, and so I'll just
Yeah.
click on if I find something that I was looking for. I was watching videos from Marsha and other people that were talking about it in a positive sense. Obviously, I found the stuff that says it's got its stigma and that type of stuff, but I just looked for the good stuff and actually looked for so I could share with Shan,
Mm-hmm.
these are the positive things that can come from this. So
That makes me
yeah.
so happy. I love that. So how many years, what year was that you got diagnosed? 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
No,
About 4.
2020.
Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
5.
Okay, I'm off.
Yeah.
2020. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
You know
awesome.
how I often say about the psychiatrist being a dickhead? Well, Scott
Well, you
loves
say that
to-
about every single human. But yes.
Yeah, so Scott loves this man, like really, and I say that in jest. He was a very strange individual, but his
They all are.
diagnostic skills were spot on.
Yeah.
And the way Scott was able, like he really did amazing research, because I felt quite disconnected in hospital, because even if I did want to Google it, I couldn't, because I didn't have
a phone.
I didn't take my phone or anything the first time that I went, and that was by choice. I was allowed to have it, obviously.
Okay.
But
a lot of the time you're not allowed to have it, so that's interesting.
Yeah, no, I was definitely allowed to have it in the public hospital. I wasn't, but in the private hospital I was. And I said to him, no, I don't want people to contact me. I just want to kind of focus. And if that changes, I'll get you to bring it. And the hospital didn't give me a lot of information. So I kind of got a diagnosis, and that was that. And there was nothing I could do with that. So I didn't understand what it meant or what it looked like or what the challenges would be. So Scott going home and doing that research and coming back, and he explained to me that there were some subcategories across borderline and where he thought I fit and why he thought I fit there. And I think ultimately that it was the best way to be introduced, because I was being introduced to it by someone who cared a lot about me.
Yeah.
But who also knew the intimate details of who I was as a person. You can't, after a few appointments with a psychiatrist, be able to explain the complexities of every single thing that you're facing. So to have Scott come back knowing the full picture of everything and what it's like to live with me and who I am behind closed doors, because obviously the version of me that he gets is different to the version that, you know, my friends get or my work colleagues get. Hearing those things from him was very powerful for me. And as he mentioned, we'd had a really traumatic time leading into that. There was some stuff there that was really difficult for him, and he probably won't mention it, but like there were times where he was walking on eggshells around me because he didn't know how I was going to react to things when we were living in such a pressure cooker of so much stuff going on. And we had, and it was the back end of COVID as well. And we had all of these extra additional things to deal with.
And just, I'm not going to give details, but for context for the listeners who haven't heard other episodes, their family was going through a very traumatic experience as a family unit. Is that safe to say? It wasn't just you, Shannon. It was a family trauma that happened, and then trying to deal with that was what kind of led to this.
Yes, and there was other parts mixed in with that as well. Like it was really existential crisis. Like it was bad. It was as bad as you could get. Yeah. So dealing,
I can't imagine,
with the things that we were managing without having mental health conditions thrown into it would have been challenging for anyone. So
truly,
yeah, Scott was able to take all of that context and kind of present it back to me, and it only took that one conversation, and I was convinced that, oh yeah, this is it, this is the thing, and I've been looking for this for such a long time for this answer. So I've got two choices. I either accept it and figure out what the hell I'm going to do with it, or, well, the other alternative was unthinkable, and that's where I already was. So
right, yeah, totally,
yeah. So the diagnosis was the catalyst for everything.
Yeah, which it often is.
It was really the perfect storm for a crisis and a crisis reaction. So it was just lucky that we were able to get Shannon to a safe space where she could get the help to get well to start with, and then understand, and then head forward in the right direction. I think, we talked a lot about, it's not that important to put labels on things and that type of stuff when it comes to mental health, but I think with BPD, it is quite important to get the right diagnosis, because the treatment is so different than everything else.
Yes, totally.
And I think a big part of, what kept me attracted to Shannon through the time was she was always trying to get help. She was always trying to reach out and get the support she needed. They'd all be dead ends because she was being treated for the wrong things. And I think, when you talk about getting treated for bipolar, it is similar symptoms. And this is some of the stuff that I researched to go back and talk to Shannon about as well. Very similar symptoms, but a very, very different treatment. And
totally,
the two, probably led, the treatment for bipolar led to making the crisis even worse than it probably would have been if she wasn't receiving that treatment. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So what does a healthy, supportive relationship look like to you two? Because clearly you have it. That's very obvious. Maybe I'll start with Scott.
Yeah, I think I could speak of before the diagnosis. Probably not as healthy. Look, answering a lot of calls, I think, is probably what I've noticed the biggest difference. So prior to something would happen, there'd be an emotional response, and Shannon would need to talk it through with someone. Generally, that when it was, she'd obviously manage herself to the best of her ability. And then when it get to that point where she needed some support, she'd reach out. And it'd be a pretty wild phone call to start with, and then we'd work through it, and then just put some, I guess, some logic into the thinking. I think for me, that's been the biggest change. Shannon manages 99% of that stuff. I get one phone call a year now, which is cool. I think that's pretty normal for any relationship. So 1 or 2 calls a year, and we just talk it through. And it's something we've supported, each other with. I think, and being able to understand where that's coming from now is a lot easier for me to have those conversations and then go back to work and think, oh, where did that come from? Now it sort of makes a lot more sense to me. While Shannon was in hospital, we talked more than we'd ever talked before on that personal level. We shared a lot of stuff, and we sort of committed to each other that, we'd be honest with each other when we didn't feel okay. We've got a few rules, I would say, that we stick to, which really help. And we'll talk to each other a lot earlier than we did before, and I think that's really important. And we'll call each other out too. Like, I often call Shan out, and even if she is okay, even check in and say you're right, and probably do it far more often than most couples would. But it's something we are committed to doing for each other during the process. Yeah.
Do you mind me asking what those rules are?
We've got a few. Don't drink if you're mad or sad. That's a really good one.
Yep.
That's a
good life rule.
Yeah, but we stick to that. Well, Shannon can talk about the ones if there's any rules back towards, but it's mostly about calling Shannon out, and we had that discussion where, like even yesterday, just checking in and saying, you all right? Or like if there's some more than normal amount of stuff going on, we'll check in with each other more often. If I see a change in behaviours, so there was a few things that I could articulate after the diagnosis around certain more longer term behaviours. Watching some shows that have no meaning. What do you used to call them, Shan? She's got a name for it.
He's referring to the Real Housewives.
Yes. I mean, those have plenty of meaning.
Oh yeah.
Reality TV shows, which in when I am well, I have zero interest in.
Interesting.
But when I was unwell, I would get drawn into those. It was just an escape. I would use it as an escape thing. So that's Scott's first time that if I'm binge watching Real Housewives, he's like, this bitch ain't okay.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I feel like Aaron feels that way about the reality shows I watch, but it's not about my mental health. It's more like, really? Are you really watching this trash? And I'm like, yes, I am, actually. I love this trash.
If I'm watching true crime documentaries, he's like, oh yeah, she's fine.
Oh yeah, she's okay. Yeah, she's falling asleep to serial killer podcasts. Yeah, no worries. That's all good.
Yeah, and I think sleep was another big one we would call out as well. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And
no, go ahead.
Falling asleep on the lounge watching those shows. It's those early indicators that now I can understand more about. I can intervene earlier and ask, and generally it'll be, yeah, I'm fine, but I think it's enough to sort of trigger that, okay, right. I've got to have...
Somebody else is recognizing it.
Yeah, I've got to use some of my tools, or, I don't tend to help out too much with that type of stuff, but it might be just that instant conversation that changes the focus. Yeah.
That's awesome. And have you found that for yourself, it's been helpful for you to be more aware of your mental health and mental state, to have these more open dialogues?
It's definitely eliminated a lot of frustration, and I think Shannon talked about walking on eggshells. We'd get to the point where I'd be very frustrated around a number of things when Shannon wasn't okay. Fair. How stuff happening around the house and cheese tasties a few nights a week and stuff like that. That now I really understand, and those frustrations are gone. they don't. Well, they might come and go, but nowhere near like they did before. And I definitely really articulated it to start with, in the way that I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time. And it's not that we argued at all, or we didn't really ever have any disagreements between each other. It was just that I didn't want to trigger Shannon in any way, and so I
Right. Like overly cautious, basically.
yeah, really, really cautious. That's what the walking on eggshells were. Is that
Mhm.
I was taking care not to say this or do this or do this because I know that I didn't want to get a. But that's completely gone now, and yeah, big difference. And I say to a number of people that diagnosis, and that's why I like the doctor. Fundamentally changed our lives, and yeah.
That's amazing. So Shannon, anything to add on what a healthy, supportive relationship looks like for you guys?
I want to add something. I'll do that one first. So communication, obviously, as Scott mentioned, now I have the capacity to regulate my own emotions in a healthier way. I think I'm better at supporting him as well than what I was before. And it's unusual to have this conversation because our relationship wasn't fraught with a whole heap of problematic things prior to all of this happening. Anyone externally looking in would go, these guys are great. We had a lot of fun. We liked all of the same things. Outside, it looked really good. But what was happening for me, there was definitely a lot of anxiety, like extreme anxiety, because I didn't understand what was happening inside of my body. The intensity of, and I could see as a rational person that the intensity of my emotions or my reactions to things wasn't in line with the thing that was occurring. So then there's this aspect of, am I crazy? Why can't I control this? Now that that's all relatively in check, I don't do it well all the time.
It's never in check 100% of the time or you'd be a robot, yeah?
Yeah. But my capacity to be able to support Scott in our relationship is very different. But I would say in my transformation, he has had his own. So Scott went to a psychologist. Are you okay with me talking about this part? Went to a psychologist to learn how to support me. So
Amazing.
Shannon's got a BPD diagnosis and I want to know how to support her. And in that happening, she was like, hey, dude, hang on. Maybe there's
What
a
about
couple of
you?
things here that you need to look at as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that journey was one that we took together. So we were both in therapy, separate therapists, learning all of these things. And when Scott said about, that connection and talking more after that happened and being more open with each other, because we were both in therapy, it was like all of the layers of the onion had been peeled off and we were right down to the center, and we were doing that with clinical assistance. So,
and like used to talking about that kind of thing, which is super hard for people that have never done that before.
No, and I don't think we had, or that we understood the importance of it either. Like Scott had heard about different experiences throughout my life, and I'd heard about different experiences throughout his. And I think we both had a reasonable idea about the different traumas and things that we'd experienced in our lives that had shaped us. But this was a whole new level of understanding and exploring and doing that together and learning to be vulnerable with a partner in a way that I had never been before was huge for me. And we really, while we made the commitment to honesty and communication, vulnerability was the other thing that we really committed to at that time. And it didn't matter how ugly it looked or how many times I needed to crawl into the little spot on his shoulder or whatever that was available. But it wasn't just for me, it was for him as well. So he was able to say, I'm really struggling with this, or, I'd had a suicide attempt. He was extremely concerned for my safety.
Yeah. How could you not be?
Yeah, exactly. But instead of having to say that in a way that, I don't know how this might affect her, or we were just able to be really vulnerable in the things that were difficult for us. And I think that experience is changed my perspective on vulnerability completely, not just in relationships, but in the world, and how important it is to be invited into vulnerability with people. Because when we did that for each other, it completely revolutionized what was already a pretty great relationship. It just made it so much better. So, and the other part that I wanted to mention was through that, I think, and through Scott's journey with my mental health stuff, and then his own journey into therapy and him understanding more about mental health, it's changed who he is too. So not only am I doing so much better and have tools to be able to make my life easier, Scott has some of those tools as well, and then has gone out in his own world and his own workplace and has this incredible capacity to use vulnerability and our own lived experience to support other people in his life. And I think that just makes me so proud of him. Like, given that my suicide attempt was the most shameful thing that I've ever experienced in my life, what has come from that has not only benefited us, but the people around us and, his people in his world. And I think that's because of the work that we did together, which is pretty profound considering it's, I don't know if there'd be many people who'd say maybe my suicide attempt was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I don't know that you would disagree with me, Scott, would you?
No, I think it was definitely a life-changing moment for us and our family. But in particular self, you're living in obviously a much better life now than you were in the lead up to that. And it's just that knowledge and tools and the work that you've done during that period that's completely changed your life. Yeah.
It was the work that we did, darling.
Yes.
And continue to do, I want to say.
Yeah.
Because it's not an end state, right? You're going to be doing that forever.
Yeah, just on the back end of what Shan said then, like, I've taken this into my work. I work in a heavy industry, dominantly male dominated. Mental health's a really big thing. The work that we did during the period, I did a lot of research into trauma and did a lot of study on trauma as well and the impact that has on people, as well as all the BPD stuff and supporting Shan with that. I think the big thing that really helps me is Shan and we had an agreement back then as well. We talked about in the months afterwards around giving me permission to share the parts of the story that are relevant to what I'm dealing with at work and the people I'm talking to at work. It's so powerful to share real life lived experience in those scenarios. Hey guys, this is other people. This is the type of stuff that everyone deals with. It's not just you.
Yeah.
And then be able to share little bits and some of the work we did and that type of stuff to really help other people. And that's, apart from our relationship being stronger, this whole experience has just made me, I'm a people leader at work, and I spend a huge amount of time with people, and it's changed the way I do my job. well, Shannon allowing me to, or giving me permission to share parts of that story. But it was that vulnerability between us and the power I could see from that in the moment. And now I use that vulnerability with myself at work. It's just fundamentally changed the way I lead.
The people you work with are so lucky because, especially in male dominated fields, it just doesn't get talked about enough. And I mean, I don't know about in Australia, but in British Columbia, Canada, where I live, we have a really, really bad overdose crisis. It's horrible. So many people are dying from fentanyl and contaminated drugs. And people always assume like it's people who are unhoused, who are poor, who are whatever. And actually, I don't know the number exactly right now, but for the longest time, the highest amount of deaths were people working in trades that lived in their own homes and died alone because they just didn't have anybody to talk to about anything that was going on. And it's devastating, right? These are all youngish men who are just struggling by themselves. And I'm sure you have changed a lot of people's lives by being open about this, which I appreciate and thank you for. Yeah.
In the suicide rate in industry in Australia is, or anywhere in the world is, but in manufacturing and in industry is extremely high with young men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's something we need to do something about, so the more people that can support and be there to help out, better.
Yeah, and you are doing something about it, which is beautiful. When you tell people about Shannon's experience, have you ever heard any like stigma or negative things come from people about borderline personality disorder when you are sharing?
No, and I thought about that leading into this, and even prior to, it's not something that I'd heard the word, but I'd never really understood, but I never really. I think I've got a good way of blocking that type of stuff out and not.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So when I share it, I don't share it in a negative way. So when you're talking in a positive way, you very rarely get negative back. I think that's some of the reason. But yeah, I haven't heard any of the horror stories, any of the stigma that when you research it on the internet. I really think all our family and friends really supported Shannon through the process, and us.
Amazing. And so, how do you describe borderline personality disorder to other people based on your experience with Shannon?
If I'm going into detail, I talk about the emotions and the waves of emotions and how quickly they can change. That was, I guess, when I done my research, the bit that sort of explained it best to me. And I often refer it to in that way when I'm explaining it, compare it to depression, and sometimes bipolar, because
Right.
it really helps explain the speed in which the emotions change. And that's probably the best way I've found to explain it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And those are both good ways. So, when you think about borderline personality disorder in the context of Shannon, what are some of the most positive things about those rapidly shifting emotions and her passion that come with the disorder?
It's Shannon's drive to support other people and help other people, care for other people. I'm an emotional person as well, and look at the best in people. And Shannon's very good at that, and really reaching out when she sees someone that's not okay. Always has been reaching out, being the first person to support them. Um, every time. So that's one of the things, this Shannon's strengths that I really. And I think the other one is that real drive to get
Yeah.
help. There's always been that drive to reach out and get support and ask the questions, and that's been really one of the things I really admire about Shannon.
Amazing. There's so many things to admire about Shannon. so, so Scott, if somebody came to you, let's say at work, and said, "Hey, I just started dating someone with BPD, and I know you've had experience in this," what advice would you give them about that initial relationship phase when it comes to BPD?
Be vulnerable, communicate, talk to each other, learn what good looks like, and learn what sort of things to look for, so you can step in and have that conversation.
Yeah, like red flags and all that you talked about
Yeah,
earlier. Yeah.
yeah.
And we should all learn those about ourselves too,
So,
regardless of
yes,
what mental health issues we have. Totally.
Yeah. But I think as a partner, that's where you can support, because sometimes that is in the moment difficult to see when you're really tied up in it and involved. And someone that spends so much time with someone, it becomes something that you can pick up on and see. So I think that's really important as a partner. And then just appreciate the good things. There's so many good things. Yeah, and don't focus on any of the negative stuff. Block that out, and focus on the good stuff.
Beautiful. So Shannon, moving you to the hot seat for a minute. One of the challenges with BPD for a lot of people is this idea of having a strong sense of self, or lack thereof. How do you not lose yourself in your relationship with Scott? Or do you?
So I was just going to add at the end of that, another positive that Scott should have mentioned is my ability to enjoy all of his hobbies. Because I'm, I can just get on board with anything. So, and that ties perfectly into this. How do you not lose yourself? So,
okay, but first I want to know what some of his weirdest hobbies are.
Oh, he's a woodworker. Like my entire house looks like a woodwork shop. Like it's full of wooden bowls and pens and wooden vases. Cool. And when we go on holidays, our souvenirs are pieces of wood. What are those things called, Scott? The seed things, Banksia pods.
Banksia pods. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Collect, and he turns them into pens, Laurie. Like they are amazing. They are so amazing. I'll send you a photo.
Yeah, please.
So that's one. I mean, he got into making fishing rods for a while. I didn't get as involved with that, but like even right back when we first started dating, Scott's always been really into camping, and I never had been. And like literally, my whole episode with you was about nature.
I was going to say, I was like, wait, you weren't already into camping? Because this seems like everything that you want in your life.
It's literally, it is everything that I want in my life. Yeah. I wouldn't say that is me being absorbed into Scott's personality. I would say Scott's ability to provide me with experiences, and this really has nothing to do with BPD. Oh, maybe a little bit, because like I do get excited about new things. Like I really love trying new things. So when he puts these new things on the table, as the curator of all of our adventures, I find new things that I love. So I wouldn't say I get lost in his identity. We are still two very different people, and I think we make it pretty safe for each other to be who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I idolize him, which is
positive and negative, cases,
but can also bear curse, because I obviously then it doesn't give him a lot of wiggle room to stuff up,
right?
Which he doesn't do.
Dickhead. That word kills me. It makes me laugh so hard. That is like not a word we use in Canada, and it's entertaining as hell.
How many times a day, Scott, would I call you a dickhead?
A fair few.
Yeah. I mean, I talk to Shannon maybe 2 hours a month, and I think that she has said it in my presence, not about you, but in general, probably like 5 times a month of the 2 hours a month I talk to her. It's so good. Anyways, sorry.
I don't know that I get lost in his identity, or that I absorb into it. I just really like him, and I feel quite safe to be my own person. Like there's still a lot of things we disagree on.
Yeah.
There's certainly no illusion that, you know, we have to be aligned on all of the things. But for me too, like when it comes to like the big BPD relationship stuff, like splitting and stuff, I don't split on Scott. I can't really. I mean, does he piss me off? Yes, of course he does, the same way as I do him.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's normal in every single relationship. When you spend the majority of your time with one person, like they are going to get on your nerves at times. But that is very few and far between. Splitting for me, I think is more prevalent in female relationships than what it is in romantic relationships. So I don't think I'm the stereotypical BPD person as far as that kind of thing in relationships. And even if I do get cranky, I've got BPD, so I'm only going to be cranky for like, you know,
30 seconds or whatever.
And then I'm
yeah, you'll be fine. Totally. That is one joy of it, isn't it? You're like, I mean, at least the bad parts don't last all that long.
Yeah.
It's probably confusing. So, you know, you said obviously every relationship has conflict, because if you live with another human being for more than a week, you're going to have some sort of conflict. How do you go about repairing that conflict? Is it just the communication that you've talked about throughout?
I think I go out to the shed and make another bowl.
Perfect. Especially if the fight is about too many bowls, right? That's the perfect solution.
I think conflict for us might look a little bit different too, because one of my biggest triggers is feeling like I'm in trouble. It's a deeply rooted thing. We're very aware that this is my trigger, and Scott is very mindful that when something gets brought up where he's annoyed or he's pissed off or I've done something that he doesn't enjoy, if he's going to broach that with me, he's generally quite mindful about how he does it, knowing that I can
it's going to trigger you.
Yeah, I can very easily revert back to that feeling of like I'm a little girl who, you know, is getting in trouble and I don't understand why. So we don't have a lot of conflict ever. Like, we have a lot of pretend conflict where we're just like really just taking the piss out of each other, you know, silly make-believe arguments about, you know, putting the blankets on because Scott's freezing, which is just kind of part of our stick, you know. But we're not really, I think if there is a problem, we don't yell, we talk. And that kind of just works for us.
I think we're just to go on the, you know, the things we do, we're so really good at molding both people's likes into the activities we do. So we like camping, cooking, all that type of stuff. And Shannon says that it was my hobby, and yeah, it was something that I was definitely well and truly interested in before meeting Shannon. But I think we're able to really mold things that Shannon likes into things that I like and do stuff together. And we do that in all aspects of life. It's not just, you know, one-offs and that type of stuff. We sort of work out, we're going to do this. Let's make it good for everyone. We did the same with Else and Jack when they were with us. You know, Charlie's a different kid, and he's interested in different stuff. So when we do things, we do it so everyone enjoys an aspect of it. And I think that's really important, that they're not just doing it for me. We're not just doing it for Shan or the kids. We're doing it for all of us. And, you know, we become tolerant to that hour that we're doing something for the other person, but then really enjoy that because they're enjoying it as well. So I think we do that really well. and always have. And I think that's some parts of why we can enjoy our time with each other so together. Yeah.
The other thing too, I think I 100% agree with that. And I think everybody in this family has agency, not just in the things that we do, but even in how the house runs or communicating. Like, we've got a pretty amazing 11-year-old son who, can say, Mum or Dad, what you just did made me feel this way. And we have this thing called a do-over where we'll try it again and we'll try and do it differently. And so us modeling that has obviously fallen down to him as well.
Yeah.
But the other part that I wanted to mention, and I've just had a brain snap and I can't remember what it was, talking about agency, doing the things that we love doing.
So, a question for both of you, and I'm trying to figure out who I want to start this one, but I'll leave it to you guys. So, what message of hope would you share with someone who has borderline personality disorder, who really wants a loving and healthy relationship, but thinks it's not possible for them, or is afraid it's not possible for them?
I'll start. I didn't ever think that I deserved a relationship that looked like this. I grew up with like a mum and dad who had a lovely, standard healthy relationship. I don't think I thought that I deserved that. And my marriage definitely wasn't that, which probably reinstilled some of those beliefs that I had. And I would say from a borderline perspective, it's where I struggle with our relationship the most, because there is a lot of time that I think Scott could do better. I know he's never done anything to make me feel that way. That is a perceived thing that exists inside of my head and is not rooted in reality. I've never once felt like I am not, well, me and the kids are not his priority. In everything that he does, he reinforces that. And it's not I'm telling you this so you know you're my priority. It's his actions. It's the way he conducts himself. It's the way he interacts with us, the way he prioritizes things in his life. There is no doubt that we are his priority. And my wise mind will tell me that all the time. My emotional or unreasonable mind tells me that he could do so much better, and makes me sad that I feel that way, because I know given the choice, he wouldn't choose different. And that's just something I'll keep working on. And that, I suppose, a goal for me for the future is that one day I get so good at this, building myself up and self-esteem and all of those things that come with having BPD, that I don't feel like that. So it's not normal, it's not natural, but well, it probably is natural for us, but it's the one thing that, I hope will change, and that I'll feel, it won't play a role in my thought patterns anymore.
Interesting. Thanks, Shannon. Scott, how about you? Anything you'd want?
Yeah, for me, I think honesty, like really share, be vulnerable, share what you're, what you're feeling and where you're at, and communicate in that sense. I think as a partner, having really that time I spent studying all the symptoms, and sharing with Shannon when she was going and doing DBT, and yeah, when she got back, and sharing what did you do today, what did you learn, really helped me understand what Shannon was going through, and then I could be a much more caring, supporting partner, because it wasn't confusing to me anymore. It was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And now when I see it, I'm like, yeah, that's Shan.
That's what she's
Yeah,
doing. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. That's Shan. That's and I can be much more supportive in that place then, because I have the knowledge as to what's going on. And I think that would be my best advice, I guess, as someone with BPD that is already aware that they have it, and then they're trying
Mm-hmm.
to, I think, yeah, find a way to share, and honestly share with the partner, and they'll appreciate it, and then really understand what's going on, rather than just going, "Hey, what's going on here?" I
Yeah.
think the fact that you can understand that and see, um, be empathetic in that situation, and understand that, one of the big things, um, I share with people at work, that don't really understand mental health, um, is, and I use examples like, if someone breaks their ankle at work in a heavy male dominated industry, or is in pain or something, the rest of the crew come to support them. They let that person rest and sit down, and they're really, really supportive. And you just sit over there. We'll do your work for you today, and until that person comes back to full fitness. As a society, we're really not good at doing that with mental health. We look at it completely different, where in reality is exactly the same as someone, someone with an injury or a health concern that they're working through. And I think the more we look at it like that, the more we understand it, and the more we can be empathetic towards people that are working through mental health stuff. I hope that answered your question.
It does. It absolutely does. And I think, just hearing your guys' relationship and how important that communication and openness is in itself is a bit of a answer to the question, because a lot of the time, one of the most common questions I get asked by people who are single and looking for a relationship, and have BPD, is, should I tell the person that I have BPD, or should I not? And my answer is, yeah, you should tell them, because you're never going to survive this if they don't know. And if they find out eventually, because I was in a relationship for a long time, and then when I got diagnosed, I didn't tell him for a year or two, and then I finally told him, and it went horribly. Well, that person was never going to be supportive. And I could have saved 2 years of my life by telling him immediately so that I didn't have to waste my time, right? And I think your guys' focus on not only that traumatic experience then blossoming into this ability to have, like, this, from what it sounds like, the strongest relationship you've ever had, is really a testament to the fact that you have to know what's going on. Not just the person experiencing the disorder, but also the person living with the person experiencing the disorder. If you don't know what's going on, the whole world feels so volatile, I guess, is a good word for it. Just like stressful, because you're constantly wondering, is this going to cause an issue? Is this going to trigger someone? Is this going to result in another mental health crisis that I'm not aware of? And once you know what they're doing in DBT, once you understand where some of these behaviors are coming from, it sounds like your entire life changed. And that's just such a good example of exactly why my answer is always like, you may as well tell them now or soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think, if to be supportive, and you need to know, as a partner, and I think if they don't accept it, as you said, in that, if you share it in the right way and explain, they don't accept it, they're not the right person for you.
Yeah, it's
because
never going to work.
ultimately, I think to be successful in a relationship with BPD, you need someone who's going to, accept that and support you. Very, small amount of times where you need support,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess from advice, it's definitely not every day. It's it's far and few between, but that's part of being in a relationship and in a trusting, honest relationship is that you support each other. Shan supports me all the time as well. So, and that's what a relationship is, about caring and supporting each other. And you cannot do that without honesty and trust. And I think the only way to do that is to share. And I think the other thing is, as the partner with BPD, it'd be a very hard life to live trying to hide that all the time. And
Yeah.
I don't want to tell this partner that I've got these symptoms and I'm just going to try and hide it and then pretend to be someone else my whole life. And
Yeah.
I think
What's the
Shannon
point?
and I have talked about that a bit, and that is really hard, really, really draining on a person to pretend to be someone they're not.
Totally. We already have to do that in certain contexts. You don't want to
Yeah.
have to do that at home.
Yes, exactly right. That's where you need to be yourself.
Yeah.
I was thinking
Shannon?
about that, Laurie, in context to you asking Scott before, did you always know you wanted to have children? And the thing I didn't add to that was that Scott mentioned to me in our very first phone call, asked me if I was willing to have more kids. The first time we talked, and he was just like, this is a non-negotiable for me. Like,
Yeah,
I want
totally.
to be a dad. And I know you've already got 2 kids, so am I going to invest my time? He didn't say this, but I'm assuming the thought pattern is, am I going to invest 2 years of my life to see if this is great before I mention to you that I really want to be a dad? And then you say, oh, no, I'm not willing to have more kids. It's almost identical. And I understand why people with BPD might think it's not safe to share that thing. But if you're willing to invest in something, you need to do this. And from a person with BPD's perspective, relationships like this are possible. Relationships where you have supportive partners who actively chase your dreams and goals and want you to succeed. These types of relationships are possible, and there are people out there like Scott and Aaron, and I know that there's other super feely partners who genuinely can help. And if you have the capability to be honest about what this looks like for you, there are people out there who will not only accept it but embrace it and make your life truly worth living. So yeah, my advice is never to hide it, because the right person will give the right response.
Absolutely. Although I do want to not critique, but I want to comment on one thing that you said there, which is something along the lines of, you can find a person that will make your life worth living. Essentially, long story short, no other human is going to make your life worth living.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, I agree with that. 100%.
They can make your life so much better, but you cannot go into a relationship thinking that they're going to make your life worth living. And I know you know that, but I just want to say that for the record, that going into a relationship to try and fix your life and make it worth living is a bad call. And exactly exemplified by you guys, who were like, wow, these relationships didn't work out. And then you randomly met again. And neither of you went to that pub looking to find the next person that you were going to be with. At least not that you'd say publicly. And I think it's the same way. I didn't go into my relationship with Aaron trying to find the person I was going to be with for the rest of my life, because every time I did that, it backfired tremendously. So yeah.
That was the other thing, Laurie, you just made me think about the thing that I forgot about before, which is outside of each other, we both have independent lives. So while there's lots of stuff that we enjoy together, we still have our own separate trajectories. So we don't live in each other's pocket. He does things that he loves. The boys are going off to car racing next weekend. This weekend, I'm spending all weekend hanging out with you guys podcasting, and with Megan podcasting.
Literally all weekend.
Yeah. So we had, while the predominant part of our life is together and it's sharing experiences and the things that we love with each other, we also have separate interests, which I think is really, really healthy as well. So you just critiquing me reminded me of the thing that I was actually going to say earlier.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. This was so much fun. Scott, I literally one day will meet you in person. I mean, I'll meet both of you in person, but now I'm even more excited to meet Scott in person. And you can cook for me because I see your cooking online and it looks absolutely delicious. And I think, Shannon, what I learned from this conversation is that you like food because both of your long-term partners have been very good cooks from the sounds of things. So I get it. Thank you both so much. I hope you get to have a nap today. And yeah, I'm sure this is not going to be our last conversation.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.